Coming up next on Arizona Horizons, Journalists Roundtable will discuss the political fallout from the newly released Senate Republican health care plan. And the State Corporation Commission sides with APS regarding subpoenas issued by a fellow commissioner. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Lori Roberts of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Luigi Del Puerto of the Arizona Capital Times. Republicans in the U.S. Senate yesterday released proposed health care legislation designed to replace and repeal the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And this, Medicaid, Lori, is like front and center here as far as the nation's concerned and really as far as Arizona's concerned. Talk to us about this plan, how it would affect Arizona.
Oh boy, would it affect Arizona. The Access today came out with a proposal analysis that said it would cost us $7.1 billion. We could be talking about 400,000 people who now get health care through Medicaid being kicked to the curb.
But it would happen over time, Howie. And they call it a soft landing. How soft is this landing?
Well, if you're the 400,000, you might want to put a cushion under your tush. But the fact is that this is between 2018 and 2026. Now, of the $7.1 billion, 4.9 of that is a direct result of the state having decided to expand coverage. This started in 2000 with Prop 204. We're going to cover everyone up to federal poverty level. In 2013, Governor Brewer took advantage of the Affordable Care Act to expand coverage to 138% of the federal poverty level. Well, now the federal government is changing the rules, or at least would be under this. So the question for lawmakers is, assuming the feds back out, we lose the federal match, we lose the hospital assessment that pays for the state share because that's triggered by that, and that's the $4.9 billion. So do we find $4.9 billion over the next 9 years? Or do we decide the politically unacceptable thing of saying 400,000 people aren't going to get care?
Yeah, reduced funding starts in 2021, Luigi. The funding is supposed to stop in 2023. That's ball game. Between now and then, this thing isn't even law. This is a plan. But between now and then, how much jockeying goes around?
A lot. And the situation in Arizona is very bad, but also there's something unique about what we did with Medicaid, because in our state, we passed the voters many years ago said we must provide healthcare coverage to everybody who earns up to 100% of the federal poverty level. Now, the expansion is helping pay for that mandate by the voters. And this proposal at the end of 2026 is going to cost us $7.1 billion. Well, here's the math. Our budget is about $9.6 billion a year. That's 70% of our budget.
Well, no, wait, no, that 7.1 is over this 9-year period here. But now I'm not minimizing this. But the fact is that there's some real issues here. Look.
But regardless of what it is, no matter whether it's a dime or it's $7 billion, this is a legislature whose most of its members, well, I can't say most, but most of the majority, the Republicans, didn't even want to do Medicaid expansion. They are not about to.
Well, one of the reasons they didn't want.
You're talking about a tax increase. It's the only way that we would be able to continue these people on the plan. Governor, I'm never going to increase any taxes ever, even for school children.
And that's the key, because when I talked to John Allen, who's the House Majority Leader today, he said, look, I was never in favor of this. I knew that at some point it would blow up. This was coming. And as far as I'm concerned, if we have to vote between spending more money or getting out, I propose we get out.
Luigi, that's exactly what the critics of this said. You can't trust the federal government. You can't just get this thing, because once this thing gets going, it's going to be very difficult to lose these people. What are you going to do?
Well, that was what Andy Biggs, when he was in the Senate, was saying all along. He was saying, look, once we do this thing, it becomes very difficult politically to pull the plug, the rug from out of, 400,000, 600,000 Arizonans. However, here's the problem. If we did not do Medicaid expansion, we still would have, our Medicaid program would still have cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. We still had to, at that point, decide whether we want to do what people had mandated the politicians or lawmakers to do, or raise taxes, or completely gut this program.
Or just ignore the thing. During the recession, they put a freeze on the children's health care. They put a freeze on childless adults. They just stopped covering them, even though that voter mandate stood. But I'm not sure that if you went back to the voters and said, let's raise taxes for this group, another Prop, what was it, 204? I'm not sure that voters would go for it, because Prop 204 didn't raise my taxes. It raised taxes from tobacco users.
Right, but here's the thing. When we did the freeze, imagine the trouble and all the controversies that created when we had people who could not suddenly get transplant services, who could not get all kinds of services. Now, we have a couple dozen people in those instances. We're talking about between 300,000, maybe 600,000 people who would lose health care. The question is is it politically palatable for the current group of lawmakers to say, yeah, that's fine?
But there's another.
Base, yeah.
There's another issue here, and there's another player, and that's the hospitals. You have to remember, part of the reason the hospitals went for the assessment is they had a lot of people showing up at their doors without coverage, without care. And for the hospitals, it was cheaper for them to pay this assessment, $260-some million a year, than their uncompensated care. So the question becomes, if we go back and lose 400,000 people off of coverage, you're going to have a big financial hit on the hospitals.
We have already heard from the hospitals. They are already upset. They were upset with the House plan,
sure.
The Senate plan even more so. And again, these are plans. This isn't law as yet. But they're basically, and you remember what happened back then. There were some hospitals saying, we may not be able to stay in business. You could be losing services.
And that's the issue. And they thought they could leverage the federal dollars with their own assessment. We can't be, while we have some unique situations, as Luigi points out, we can't be the only state in that situation where you're going to have uncompensated care and you're going to have hospitals saying, do you want us to go out of business? And particularly the rural hospitals. They are operating on the proverbial shoestring.
Yeah.
There's one more thing about this Senate version of the proposal. You mentioned the rural hospitals. Now, those hospitals in rural areas as well as low-income areas, they get what's called disproportionate share payments. This is money that goes to them because they were getting all these low-income people, maybe uninsured people, that are showing up at the emergency rooms. Well, what Obamacare did was reduce those payments to them because we were going to expand Medicaid and therefore more people would be covered. Well, the Senate would roll back Medicaid expansion and at the same time maintain those reductions in the money that hospitals were getting. So it's a double whammy, triple whammy that they're facing.
And here's the thing that I don't understand. I have not yet heard an advocate for this program talk about how it actually does what the Senate Republicans were supposedly setting out to do, and that is to reduce the cost of health care. I don't see where anything in this bill does that. I see where it reduces the tax liability of certain kinds of companies and certain kinds of Americans.
And that's been the objection of the federal lawmakers on the conservative end. We know that if they lose 3 senators, this plan is dead. And we've got, 4 at least on the conservative side say it doesn't go far enough.
Got one from Nevada now, a moderate from Nevada, saying he can't do it because it's going to kicks too many people off.
Now, what's going to be interesting to see is our own 2 senators, particularly Jeff Flake, who is up for re-election, who is getting a lot of pressure from the governor's office because the governor, while he opposed expansion in the first place, has suddenly realized, holy you-know-what.
Well, has he realized that? What have we heard from the governor's office?
I have not heard a word from the governor.
Well, the governor's office did say that the governor's office wrote a letter to John McCain laying out 5 things he wanted to see in this Senate version of the health care repeal. And his spokesperson said he is not seeing those 5 points that he had raised with John McCain being addressed in this bill. To me, it's very clear that the governor is saying you can't support this proposal. It's very bad for the state. Well,
this is a disaster for the state. I would have expected within the first 24 hours.
Well, you have to understand our governor, who does a little bit of wet his finger and put it in the air. He has been sending little signals like the letter to McCain, getting access to put out these numbers today. I'll be willing to bet you lunch that next week we're going to see a little more verbiage out of this governor, because I think he recognizes that if McConnell intends to vote on this before the July 4th
break,
which he does,
that it's now or never.
But
That you
exactly-
can't just pussyfoot around, particularly with Flake, because Flake could be a make or break on
But
this.
the question
you got
really is-
Flake, you got Kelly Ward is tweeting every 10 minutes about how it doesn't go far enough and the plan is too soft. And you've got Jeff DeWitt waiting in the wings, presumably. He's in a tough spot.
You've also got Donald Trump. We had some folks on here that had done some research. Donald Trump is the most popular Republican in the state of Arizona.
Yep.
I mean, if you're Jeff Flake, you're on a surfboard right now. You're trying to balance all these different
But which
waves
Donald
hitting
Trump?
at
Is
you.
it the Donald Trump on the campaign trail that said he wasn't going to cut Medicaid at all, or is it the Donald Trump now?
That's the one. Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is
but,
yes.
but even
Well,
within that, I mean, listen to the comments he made earlier this week. You know, he wants something, quote, with a heart. Well, he's got the heart, the liver, the spleen, and everything else out of this
Yeah,
thing.
he's also saying good things, though, about the
There's
Senate
no
plan.
doubt that Jeff Flake is in a political pickle, but so the pressure is on them, not just on Jeff Flake, but on John McCain as well. We have the governor's office signaling, in my mind, very clearly that they don't want this proposal to get through. You have the hospital saying, it's going to be disastrous for us. It's going to be chaos for us.
then why
You have
would he
their
vote
Phoenix,
for it?
they have the Phoenix Children's Hospital CEO saying, look, it's very bad for children.
Well, to answer your question, it comes back to what Ted was saying: is Trump's popularity. If Trump signs off on the plan, you've got Senator Flake saying, "Okay, I'm being attacked from my right, my left. Am I better off staying with Trump?"
Oh, I understand that as far as Flake goes. What I don't understand is why it's a pickle for John McCain.
Oh, I don't think-
Because John, unless he's going to run again when he's 100 years old, he's
Look,
done.
they're taking him out of there in a box. Come on, we know that, but that's a separate issue. Look, John McCain, again, this comes down, you asked the question of which Trump, which John McCain? I mean, how many John McCains have we seen since the 80s?
Will we see anybody in public service do what they perceive to be truly the right thing for the state and for the most vulnerable
have
among
seen-
us?
you have-
or will they just go with what's best for their career?
Well, here's the thing about that. You have seen Republican legislators come out very strongly against this proposal. You have Kate Brophy McGee, you have Regina Cobb, you have Heather Carter, you have Republicans, many of them are considered to be moderate Republicans, but they have come out very clearly and very adamantly saying this is very bad for us.
Those are the same ones who voted for Medicaid
for Medicaid.
expansion.
That's true.
So
But you do have lawmakers.
it all comes down to this governor coming out.
The one in Nevada did.
Yeah, I'm
the one
saying-
in Nevada
I'm
came
saying-
out and said, this is no good.
But this governor, again, a little bit of, well, I feel a draft a bit, it depends on him, because that's what certainly Flake's vote is dependent on that. See, if the governor comes out strongly and says this is a piece of manure, then Flake has cover.
All right, well, they're probably going to move the goalposts on us next week anyway, so by next Friday we'll be talking about something completely different as far as the Senate plan is concerned. But we will probably next week also be talking about the Corporation Commission, because a once very quiet
Because why
group
not?
is a weekly occurrence on this show. 4-1. Commission votes 4-1 to basically tell another commissioner your subpoenas to open up APS records ain't going to fly?
I, for one, am shocked that the utility regulators would so callously and obviously side with the utility and just essentially allow their puppet strings to be maneuvered into all of a sudden saying, nope, we're not going to subpoena you. We're not at all curious about how you have potentially spent $7 million to get all 5 members of this board on there. That's not a conflict. When we go to raise people's rates, not a problem.
Well, the debate was even deeper than that, because one of the things that Bob Burns said is, look, based on what we think happened in 2014 with the 2 dark money companies and where they got their money, the election of Tom Farese and Doug Little, based on what we do know happened in 2016 with the money for Andy Tobin and for Boyd Dunn and
for Bob Burns.
And for Bob Burns,
Yes.
who, because they hated the Democrats even worse, he said to the other 4, you need to disqualify yourselves from even considering my subpoena, and you should have an administrative law judge look at the question of whether you have a conflict. Well, that just, their heads exploded.
Right, well, not just a conflict on that particular issue, but even when it comes to rate cases. APS, of course, is now on a rate case. Bob Burns is saying, do you not recuse themselves? And why should you not recuse themselves? But two things here.
I find it very interesting that they can decide themselves that they don't have a conflict.
Well,
the people who have the conflict are deciding they don't have a conflict.
Well, I was kind of wondering about that myself. I mean, is that legal? Is that, forget about the appropriateness of it, is it legal?
Well, there are two legal issues there. Number one, there is a general rule: if the majority of an elected board has a conflict, they don't have a conflict, because otherwise you have a law of impossibility. You can't do it. Now, the way courts handle this, and in fact, as the state Supreme Court did this once, is they appointed 5 acting Supreme Court justices to rule on an issue with the court. I don't know that there's no precedent for appointing 5 acting corporation commissioners to do that. So even assuming that they have the conflict, they may legally be entitled to vote on it.
Well, 2 points here. The other commissioners have been very consistent on this issue in terms of, if, as Lori puts it, siding with APS or rejecting Bob Burns', some people would call it crusade, however you want to call it. That's one. The second thing is that this actually frees up Bob Burns and allows him to go to the trial court and said, look, I've exhausted my options with the Corporation Commission, because as you know, a month ago, the trial court said, look, you haven't exhausted your options, you haven't asked the Commission. Go ask them if they would, issue this subpoena and side with you. And now that the Commission clearly has rejected his plea, now he can go back to the court and say, rule on this one.
And that's going to be an interesting issue, because even the Attorney General has said that individual commissioners have the right to subpoena the books of regulated utilities. Now, that gets the APS side. Now, however, the Pinnacle West, which is where the money may have come from, Attorney General Brnovich said, no, you need a majority of the commission. So it'll be interesting to see what the judge says.
But if you read Brnovich's opinion on that very carefully, he sort of sets out a roadmap for how you might argue that an individual commissioner can indeed subpoena the records of Pinnacle West.
Well, right, and I think that the underpinning point there is that Pinnacle West is a publicly traded corporation, and I'm forgetting exactly what the argument is, but there is a way, presumably there is a way, for a single commissioner to go to a publicly traded corporation because it is publicly traded.
Up to a point.
Up to a point, yes.
Have you ever, though, seen an elected body essentially say, no, we don't have that power?
Well, I find that fascinating.
We want to divest ourselves of that power.
Yeah, one of the commissioners says, I want to see these books, I want to see what's happening, and the other commissioners say, no. Not only do they say no, but regarding your thing about whether or not they should recuse themselves from APS cases, Andy Tobin, quote, Burns is out of control. Little said he was offended that Burns went this direction using supposition, rumor, innuendo, unfounded by media reports. And Tobin basically said that this is a desperate need by Burns for constant attention. How divided is this group?
Well, first of all,
not divided at all.
Well, I mean, how divided with one guy in the corner? Let's put it that way.
Well, okay, but let's be fair. Look, Bob Burns is on a crusade. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he also has done it in a way to really tick off his colleagues here. So it may be that Tobin is correct in terms of his need for attention, but that doesn't necessarily make him wrong either.
I would think that a commission who recently experienced the joys of watching one of their former colleagues be indicted on charges of bribery involving his work on the commission, I would think that a commission like that people think the word corruption and corporation commission, that they would want to be as transparent as possible.
But you don't understand. Tom Faree says this is the 2014 election. It's water under the bridge. Let's move forward. We'll have some ethics rules at some point.
There are other issues that the other commissioners have raised. For example, the First Amendment rights, supposedly political speech rights of corporations, and they have consistently said, like, we don't want to necessarily go in there and wait in to interject ourselves into.
Except for the fact that even when the U.S. Supreme Court decided the Citizens United case, they said the fact that corporations can give does not preclude the regulators, state lawmakers from requiring the disclosure of the sources of those dollars.
Transparency.
In fact, it suggested that they should be doing that.
Yes.
This First Amendment thing is such a bogus thing. Nobody has said that APS doesn't have the right to campaign for or against anyone that they want. It's simply a matter that voters should know.
Just let us know about it.
Who is the messenger here?
Yeah. All right.
Or quite frankly, APS could just tell us to.
This is the Corporation Commission to be continued.
Yes.
We move on. Court of Appeals with a ruling regarding in-state tuition for Dreamers, basically saying no in-state tuition because the Superior Court judge said if you're lawful, you can get in state, but they're saying you're not legal or
lawful. They said,
lawful.
well, the DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the deferred prosecution, it confers upon them legal status. And the question is, do they have legal status or do they have legal presence? I believe that if you looked, I believe the Court of Appeals decision is the right decision because they don't, according to the Homeland Security's own website, they specifically do not have lawful immigration status.
And that's really the key.
That is the exact wording in whatever the proposition number was.
Well, that was the point, that the 2006 ballot measure specifically talked about lawful immigration status. Now, that differs from the whole driver's license fight, which was a 1996 law, which says it deals with legal presence, which is why the federal appeals courts have allowed DACA recipients, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, to get the licenses. And I think you're right. I think that strictly following the law, that's the case. Now, the question becomes, can the Board of Regents find a middle ground in that?
They already did,
They already
Luigi,
did.
find a middle
Right.
ground in the sense of this, Western states kind of not in-state but not so far away from us state?
Right, so it's not in-state tuition, but 150% of tuition, and that gets that's still some cost to Dreamers. It's about $17,000, $18,000 instead of paying $12,000 or so. But that's still an amount that's so much smaller than what would have been the full non-resident tuition, which is around $32,000. Now, the case may not be over. The Maricopa Community College could appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could take another look at it and decide however they want to decide this issue.
Someone could put a legal challenge on that 150% deal. Do we know if that's
I
legal?
think they will, because now we're down to not only the interplay of the 2006 law, but a 1990s federal law that deals with what has to be offered. Does it have to be full out-of-state tuition, or can it be some thing? Because the 2006 law, it's very clear. You can't subsidize it, which is where the 150% comes in. The federal law, now we're down into those things where the lawyers will have a wonderful time.
Well, the question is, did voters put that in place because they don't want to be subsidizing the education of the Dreamers, or was it spite?
Oh, wait, ask me. I know the answer to that one.
What is it, Howie?
Okay. Well, this was in the middle of all the stuff going on, the precursor of Prop 1070, of all the other things, no bail for illegal immigrants, things like that. No, this was a whole period of, we're going to do what we can to, what was it?
Make life as miserable?
Make life miserable, attrition. We're going to get people to self-deport.
All right. Who is Greg Patterson, and why did he resign as chairman of the Board of Regents?
I know, it's a shocking thing. He sort of outed himself, didn't he? Greg Patterson, and to be fair, Greg Patterson has been plenty critical of me. But I've never seen a guy implode like this guy has imploded. He apparently he really wasn't a secret taping because he knew he was taping, but he taped a conversation that he had lobbying a couple of legislators over a bill that wanted to essentially get rid of the Board of Regents and create a Board of Regents for each of the 3 state universities. And he got a little heated, and he basically told Representative Fincham, lose the costume there. I can't remember you probably know the exact words.
Yeah, well, it was because of a tie and the whole 9 yards, Western look.
It was, frankly, probably a lot of people. Well, I won't even go there.
Okay, I will go there. Look,
let Howie go there. Howie, go there.
Howie, if they're worried about ties, first of all, I'd hate for him to meet up with you with that, whatever that is you got around your neck.
But this isn't a Western tie.
Yeah,
this is
no,
Looney
it is not a
Tunes.
Western tie. But what was he thinking?
I think, look, I covered Greg as a legislator. He was head of the Residential Utility Consumer Office. He ran for the Corporation Commission. He has lobbied the Corporation Commission. He is somebody who's a little full of himself and convinced that whatever he does, he is right, and everyone else, me, Lori, Luigi, we're all wrong, and which is why he had a blog called Espresso Pundit to criticize all of us. To remind us of all of that. I think he believed that he would use the sheer force of his arguments to convince Mark Fincham, and Jill Norgaard that their bill to break up the Board of Regents into these 3 separate boards was just silly. And if they wanted to be good Republicans, his words, they would drop this.
I get all that. I get all that. But Luigi, why do you record the conversation? And then why do you share the conversation with others?
Quite frankly, I don't get it. I don't understand why you would record and then share it to people. He might have some good reasons for it, and he might blog about it, a couple of weeks from now. But here's the thing. You never tell a lawmaker, anybody for that matter, how good or how bad they dress. It's just, you don't do that. And the second thing is that created all sorts of problems for the governor's office, but also for the Arizona Board of Regents. Mark Finchem is not going anywhere. He's going to be back next year. And who knows what's going to happen next year? They will probably need his vote on something.
Real quickly, Lori, how does this poison the water as far as the legislature and universities?
Oh, I think that they'll patch it over, given the fact, I would assume, I can't imagine that Greg Patterson really resigned because he has seen the error of his ways and thinks what he did was a bad thing. I'm sure that there was a phone call from somewhere up on a particular 9th floor over to him saying,
Time to resign.
Gotta go. Because
Yeah.
if you recall, the legislature changed the law a few years ago, which gives Ducey the opportunity to remove any regent that he wants.
And we should mention Karen Taylor Robson is the next Board of Regents. What do you think about her?
Well, she's a good mainstream Republican. She is the daughter of Carl Kanasic, who was the state Senate president. Gives to Republican causes probably more of a mellowing influence, shall we say.
All right, and with that, we thank you all for joining us. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us on the Journalists Roundtable. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
What's with the getup? Get serious, man. Find out what you want to do and be serious. What was that? What it was?
Lose the tie. Lose the costume.
Lose